I'm 43 and a single dad. My daughter, Mia, just turned 18 this past spring and recently started dating this guy named Nate. They met through a summer job and, at first, I didn't think much of it. She's a smart girl, quiet, level-headed, not the type to fall for someone reckless. But when she brought Nate home for dinner a few weeks ago, something happened. The second I opened the door and saw him standing on my porch, my stomach dropped. I knew that face. Not exactly, but something about it hit me hard, like a punch to the gut from a memory I didn't even know I still carried. He looked almost exactly like someone I hadn't thought about in decades, Tyler Reynolds. My high school nightmare. My relentless bully. The guy who made my teen years a living hell. Of course, it couldn't be Tyler. He'd be my age now, and this kid was Mia's age, barely 19. But the resemblance was uncanny. The sharp jawline, the same piercing smirk, even the cocky way he leaned against the doorframe. It was like looking at a ghost from my past. At dinner, I tried to act normal. But then Nate started saying these things, random comments that felt way too pointed to be accidental. He asked if I'd ever been into comic books. He mentioned Dungeons and Dragons, specifically referencing a half-orc cleric character. Then he brought up old sci-fi shows from the 90s, the kind of stuff I used to get mocked for, and Tyler used to shove me into lockers over. The weirdest part? Mia doesn't know any of that about me. I've never told her what I went through in high school. I've always kept that chapter closed. So how did Nate know? I told myself it had to be coincidence. I was probably just projecting. But then, as they were leaving that night, Nate turned around, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "Nice house, Mr. Adams. Not bad for the table dweller." And I haven't used that name, table dweller, in over 25 years. Nobody outside of my high school ever knew it. Nobody. After that night, I didn't sleep well for days. The nickname, table dweller, haunted me. That's what they used to call me because I'd eat lunch alone under the stairs in the back hall near the science wing. Tyler made sure everyone in school knew it. I was the weirdo, the loser who couldn't even sit at a regular table. So when Nate used that exact phrase, I froze. I tried to tell myself I was overthinking it, that it had to be a fluke. Maybe Mia had found an old yearbook or something. But even then, why would he say it like that? With that smirk? Like he knew it would get under my skin. I wanted to ask Mia where she met him, how they'd started talking, but every time I brought it up, she'd light up and start gushing about how thoughtful Nate was, how funny he is, how he's not like other guys. I didn't want to poison her view with my suspicions, especially when I had nothing to go on. And I hated the idea of being the overprotective dad who can't let go. But something didn't sit right. Last weekend, they stopped by again. Nate said he was just picking Mia up for a movie, but he lingered in the living room for a bit while she was getting ready. I tried to keep my distance, but then I saw his wallet fall out of his back pocket as he sat down on the armrest of the couch. He didn't notice. I hesitated. I know it was wrong, but I picked it up. And that's when I saw it. Tucked behind his ID was a photo. A small, faded Polaroid, black and white, scratched at the edges. But I knew it instantly. It was me, 17 years old, sitting on the ground under the staircase with a brown paper bag in my lap, caught mid-bite, looking startled. Probably taken with one of those disposable cameras people used to bring to school for field trips. It's not a photo I've ever seen before in my life, and Nate had it in his wallet. I stood there, staring at the photo like it had bitten me. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. That picture of me, young, embarrassed, completely unaware, how the hell did it end up in his wallet? I didn't even have a copy of it. I didn't even know it existed. Before I could slip it back, Nate turned around. Mia had just come down the stairs, laughing about forgetting her jacket, and Nate caught me mid-motion, holding the open wallet. And he just smiled. Not surprised. Not confused. Not even irritated. Just smiled. Then he took the wallet from my hand slowly, slipped the photo back in, and said, "Nice picture, isn't it?" Just like that. Calm. Smooth. No explanation. I wanted to explode. I wanted to drag Mia aside and demand answers. But I froze. Because that moment told me everything I needed to know. Nate wanted me to find it. He meant to drop that wallet. This was all intentional. It wasn't just about dating my daughter. It was about me. Mia waved goodbye and they left, oblivious to what had just happened in that brief, chilling exchange. I stood at the door long after their car disappeared down the street, heart pounding so hard I could barely think. This wasn't a coincidence. This kid knew who I was. He knew about my past. And somehow, he had access to things no stranger ever should. And the question that kept me up all night was, why? That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that Nate was part of something bigger, like he was playing a game I didn't understand yet, but I was clearly the target. I barely slept. My mind kept going back to high school, trying to remember every awful detail, every person who might have been involved in taking that photo. The next morning, I dug out my old yearbooks from the attic. I hadn't touched them in years. They still smelled like dust and basement air, but I flipped through each page, scanning faces, looking for something, anything. That's when I found it. In the yearbook from senior year, 1999, there was a photo in the Candid Moments section. It was the same picture Nate had in his wallet. I'm sitting under the staircase, same brown bag, same awkward posture. It wasn't a one-off snapshot, someone submitted it to the yearbook staff. The caption underneath read, "Every school has one." My stomach turned. I kept flipping pages, feeling sicker with every second, until I landed on Tyler Reynolds' senior portrait. And that's when everything clicked. Nate wasn't just a lookalike. He was a perfect replica. Same eyebrows, same smirk, same crooked tooth when he grinned. But this wasn't some reincarnation. It was something worse. I grabbed my phone and started searching. It took me all of 5 minutes to find it. Tyler Reynolds had a kid. His name was Nate Reynolds. Once I saw the name, Nate Reynolds, on a local college roster, it all made sense. He wasn't just some random kid. He was Tyler's son. And somehow, he'd found his way into my daughter's life, into my home. I sat there staring at the screen, heart pounding, barely able to type. I found Tyler on Facebook. His profile was mostly private, but I could see a profile picture of him on a boat with a young kid beside him. I zoomed in, and sure enough, it was Nate, maybe 12 or 13 at the time. Same face, same eyes. Without thinking, I clicked message and started typing. My hands were sweating. All I wrote was, "Your son is dating my daughter. Is this some kind of joke?" It sat there, scene 1:22 p.m. flashing beneath it for about 10 minutes. I was just about to shut the laptop when I saw the typing dots pop up. Then the reply came. "Guess the past has a way of catching up with all of us, doesn't it?" That was it. No apology. No explanation. No denial. Just that cryptic message that sounded less like a coincidence and more like a warning. I stared at it for a long time. The idea that Tyler, the guy who made high school hell for me, knew his son was dating my daughter and was fine with it? No, more than fine. He was involved. This wasn't an accident. And I was starting to think the picture wasn't the worst thing Nate had planned. After Tyler's message, I couldn't sit still. My hands were shaking, my stomach twisted in knots. I felt like I was in a nightmare, one I couldn't wake up from. I kept thinking, what's the endgame here? Why Mia? Why now? I knew I had to talk to her. I didn't want to scare her, but I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I asked her to come home early the next day, told her we needed to talk, just the two of us. When she arrived, she looked worried. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, and I tried to explain it calmly. I told her I didn't trust Nate. That something about him felt off. That he reminded me of someone who hurt me deeply in the past. I didn't mention Tyler by name. Not yet. But as soon as I started talking, she cut me off. She said she already knew. That she'd known for weeks who Nate's father was. I couldn't believe it. I asked how, why, she didn't say anything. That's when she told me something I never expected. Apparently, Nate had come clean early on. He told her who his dad was. Said he recognized my name right away. Said his dad used to talk about high school all the time, about me, the weird guy he picked on too much. According to Mia, Nate was embarrassed by it. He told her he didn't want to be like his father, that he thought it would be good to meet me, to prove people can change, that legacies don't have to define us. She believed him. She said he's been nothing but kind, thoughtful, supportive. And then she asked me, "Dad, have you given him a real chance? Or are you just afraid of the past?" I didn't know what to say. Because as much as I hated Tyler, and as much as Nate's presence rattled me to my core, a part of me wondered if she might be right. After Mia's confession, I felt something shift inside me. Maybe I was being too reactive. Maybe I was letting old trauma cloud my judgment. I told her I'd try to give Nate a fair shot, and I meant it. That night, I even invited him over for dinner. It felt weird though forced, but I wanted to see him with fresh eyes, not through the lens of Tyler's shadow. He was polite, calm, talked about school, work, even cracked a few jokes that actually landed. He even apologized for the table dweller comment, said it was a stupid attempt at being funny and that he realized afterward how inappropriate it was. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But I couldn't shake that nagging feeling in my gut. The next day, while Mia and Nate were out running errands, I noticed his car still parked on the curb. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I needed answers. I walked outside and tried the trunk. To my surprise, it was unlocked. Inside was a gym bag, some tools, and wedged underneath them, a metal box with a combination lock. It was scuffed up and heavy. I wouldn't have thought much of it, until I saw the label peeling off the side. It said, Adams, 1997-99. My name. My graduating years. I didn't touch it beyond that. I shut the trunk, went back inside, and sat in silence for an hour trying to process what I'd just seen. Why would he have a locked box labeled with my name and my high school years? It wasn't just a coincidence anymore. It wasn't even about Mia. It was about me. And suddenly, all those old instincts, the fear, the paranoia, the adrenaline, came rushing back. I wasn't just being watched. I was being studied. After seeing that box, I knew I had to get ahead of this. I couldn't let Mia be dragged deeper into whatever this was. I debated calling the police, but I didn't even know what I'd report. My daughter's boyfriend has a mysterious box with my name on it? They'd laugh me off the phone. So I waited. That night, when Mia was upstairs, Nate came back to grab something he'd left behind. I stopped him at the door. I didn't ask questions. I didn't tip my hand. I just looked him in the eye and said, "We need to talk." His smile faltered, just for a second. Then it came back, practiced and sharp. We stood outside under the porch light, neither of us blinking. I asked him, calm, deliberate, why he had a box labeled with my name and my high school years. I didn't accuse. I just asked. And for a moment, he looked genuinely impressed. Then, with zero hesitation, he leaned closer and said, "Didn't think you'd find it so soon, table dweller." That name again. Like it was a password to an old wound. He chuckled, and said, "Dad always said you'd be the paranoid type." My throat dried up. I could barely think. Then he said it, my real nickname. Not the one people knew. Not the public insult. The one Tyler used only once. The one he whispered in my ear the day he locked me in the janitor's closet for 2 hours after gym class. I'd never told anyone that name. Not even my therapist. And Nate spoke it like it was his own. He stepped back after that, calm as ever, and said, "You should really let the past go. It's not healthy." Then he smiled and walked to his car like nothing happened. Like he hadn't just gutted me open with one sentence. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room with the lights off, staring at nothing, trying to piece together what kind of sick game this kid was playing. It wasn't just revenge. It was personal. It was surgical. He was targeting me with precision, and the worst part? Mia still had no idea. The next afternoon, I waited until he picked her up again, said they were going to a coffee shop near campus. But instead of letting it go, I followed them. I kept my distance, 2-3 cars behind, but stayed close enough to see where they went. They never went to a coffee shop. They went to a house. An old, beige ranch-style place on the edge of town. Mia stayed in the car, but Nate went inside. He was in there for maybe 10 minutes. I pulled into a side street and waited. When he came out, he wasn't alone. A man stepped onto the porch. Older. Gray at the temples. Still broad-shouldered. And even though it had been nearly 25 years, I knew that face. Tyler Reynolds. He hadn't aged well, but it was him. No question. He didn't look at the car. He didn't even look up. Just handed Nate something, a flash drive, maybe? A small object. Then he turned back inside. Nate walked to the car, casual as ever, like it was just a normal errand. I drove straight home. My hands were numb. This wasn't just a weird coincidence or a messed up personal vendetta. It was something worse. They were working together. I knew I couldn't keep this to myself anymore. I was terrified for Mia, angry, exhausted, full of dread, but most of all, I needed to protect her. I needed to know why they were doing this, so I set a trap. The next evening, I asked Mia to have dinner with me, just the two of us. I made her favorite pasta and tried to keep the conversation light. Afterward, I told her I had a surprise. Something I wanted her to see. I told her the truth. About Tyler. About how he used to bully me. How he made high school a living nightmare. How that nickname, Table Dweller, wasn't just something stupid, it was a wound I'd carried for decades. And then I told her what I'd found. The photo. The locked box. The house. Her face changed. Slowly. Confusion. Then disbelief. She whispered, "Nate told me you were cruel to his dad." My heart dropped. According to her, Nate had spun a story where I was the bully. That I'd tormented Tyler for years. That the guilt had driven me into some paranoid obsession with Nate. He said the photo was proof that I was watching him even in high school. It was insane. But it was calculated. I told her I needed her to do just one thing. Talk to Nate. Ask him flat out if everything he told her was true. And then ask about the box. About the drive Tyler gave him. She hesitated. But she agreed. The next day, she came home early. Shaking. She didn't need to say a word. She handed me the drive. And left the room. I plugged it into my laptop. There were folders. Dozens of them. Photos. Notes. Typed out stories. One was titled The Closet. Another was The Lock-In. It was my life. Every moment Tyler had tortured me in high school. Every single humiliation, documented, organized. And then a final folder, The Truth. Inside was a video. Tyler. Sitting alone. Older. Tired. Talking directly to the camera. He said my name. And then, he said something I never expected to hear. I lied. He went on to confess that I'd never done anything to him. That I was just an easy target. That his home life was falling apart, and hurting me was the only thing that made him feel powerful. That he knew it ruined me. That he told Nate a twisted version of the truth to justify the guilt. And now, Nate was trying to finish the job. I'm sorry, he said. I'm sorry for what I did to you. But I'm even sorrier for what I passed down to my son. I sat there, numb, as the screen went black. That night, Mia left Nate. She told him everything. She said she saw him clearly now, not as a boyfriend, but as a weapon. One used by his father to carry out a decades-old grudge. She hasn't spoken to him since. And me? I finally slept. Not because it's over. But because I finally knew. It was never about revenge. It was about survival. And I survived.